Welcome to Strange Familiars. If you've seen something strange, Bigfoot, a ghost, UFO, anything paranormal, or if you have a story you think we should cover, you can email us, strangefamiliarspodcast@gmail.com. Another way you can contact us to tell your story is to call us and leave a voicemail message at 717-347-8554. If your message gets cut off, you can call back and continue your story. At this point, I am so backed up on interviews that is a great way to get me your story and to get featured on a show, especially if you have a shorter story or a weird encounter. Again, that phone number is 717-347-8554. Happy Thanksgiving week, everybody. Hope everybody has a great holiday. The show's dropping early this week, but it's a heck of a show. Tonight I'm speaking with Ira, who has an amazing story about the Kapre, a Bigfoot-like creature, which entered an area in a remote island of the Philippines. It's an amazing, amazing story, and Ira is a fantastic storyteller. So you are in for a treat this Thanksgiving week. If you like what we do, if you like Strange Familiars and you enjoy the content we put out, you can support us by being a patron. I always thank our patrons every show, because without our patrons we could not make Strange Familiars. So thank you, patrons. If you'd like to help and become a patron, go to Patreon, patreon.com/strangefamiliars. Our patrons get full extra episodes of Strange Familiars every month. We at least do one, often we do more. And there are all kinds of other levels of support there as well. Go ahead and check it out at patreon.com/strangefamiliars. If you don't like the idea of a ongoing subscription like Patreon and you want to help, there is a paypal.me link in the show notes for every episode at strangefamiliars.com. Everybody can help by sharing the show on social media, liking and subscribing wherever you're listening, and giving us those nice 5-star ratings, which do help the podcast get in front of new listeners. So now let's get to Ira's story. All right, tonight we're talking with Ira, who contacted me with a really amazing story of something like Bigfoot in the Philippines. I'll just let you take it away, and I'll ask questions as we go along.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Tim. Well, as Tim said, my name's Ira. I am an American born and raised in the Philippine Islands. I moved here to the United States when I was 16 years old. And my parents and the rest of us stayed here for just a couple of years, and they moved right back to the Philippines, leaving me here to attend college and so on. I retired from my work here in the United States in 2015. And having done that, wondering what you're going to do and so on, because I was only 58 at the time, my sister contacted me. She lives in the Philippines, in Manila, the capital city, and asked me, would I be interested in coming down to the Philippines, but not just there, go all the way down to the southernmost island called Mindanao, and take on a project that they wanted done, but essentially couldn't find anybody to do. And I said, well, sure, but why can't you find anybody to do it? Well, it turns out that this particular island, and anyone can look it up, Mindanao is a fairly dangerous place. As an example, it's on the State Department and the U.S. Embassy Manila's no-go zone list. It's got a lot of civil unrest, and it's just a troubled area. It is the only island in the 7,000 island chain in the country that is under martial law, and still is right now. It was declared when I arrived there. So in 2015, I said, look, that'd be no problem. I'm going to do it. Hopped on a plane with my golden retriever, Mikey, and we wound up in Manila, stayed there for just a few days, and got on domestic air flights and made our way down to that southernmost island. Once we arrived there, we landed at an airport, fairly dinky little airport, but doable, in a town called Cagayan de Oro. From that airport, we had a truck rental and a driver arranged, my sister and I, to go up to this land that they had purchased back in 1980. And we had an accommodation close by. So we went up there, and it was about a 3.5-hour journey up mountain. Now, when I say up mountain, I really do mean that. You land at the coast, and as you leave the city of Cagayan de Oro and you head to the left and start going uphill, the population becomes quite sparse. You go through some army checkpoints, 3 of them. Once you go through the last one, you still have about an hour and a half to go before you reach our destination. And that last one, they want to know what they look in the vehicle, guns bristling and all of this, and they want to know what are 2 foreigners, because after all, I look like any average sort of an American Caucasian person. I can speak the language of the country, and I know the ways of the country, but these people don't know that until you open your mouth.
Sure.
And they look in and want to know, what in the heck are you going up beyond us, this last checkpoint, essentially up in a no man's land? What are you doing? And we told them, we got land up there, we're going to go up there and see if we can find it, claim it. And they said, okay, and off we went. And this was probably close to midnight at that time. So it was pitch dark, no street lights, no police, no army, no nothing. And off we went over riverbeds and little tiny dirt jungle roads. This driver was from up there, and he knew where he was going. We arrived at our destination and essentially made camp. So that was that. Now, fast forward to about 8 months later, living in the bush. My sister stayed only a few days and then went back to civilization, back up to Manila, and left me there essentially as foreman. I had to find workers. I had to find equipment. I found that we had no electricity, no hope of electricity for power tools of any kind. Anyway, those things were overcome me by walking up and down the jungle paths with my very unusual dog over there, my Mikey, and I, hollering into fields, asking, the odd person, farmer. They have these little strips of land, like a hectare, which is just under a couple of acres, I think 2.6 or 2.4 acres, that they farm with tobacco, just subsistence farming. These people are very, very, they're very good people, but they are non-materialistic, and they are fiercely in love with their land and don't trust outsiders. Imagine, one of them sees a guy coming up onto his dirt and saying, hey, I have a question for you. You work for me for a couple of weeks, maybe even a month, and if you have any friends, would they like work? Eventually, I was able to obtain a crew of 6, and they're a good crew. They're my good friends to this day, or most of them are. The project, went not as planned. The plan was made literally every morning when I got up. Okay, what can we accomplish today? And of course, getting down to the very first task, because we had no hope of tractors or mechanized, I had to cut down a lot of very huge old-growth jungle trees. These are Acacia magnum, what would be the equivalent of the eucalyptus and Philippine mahogany, and a lot of huge, believe it or not, in the Philippines, pine trees. We were up at an elevation of about 4,500 feet, so it's an unusual tribal highland area where the nights are cool, the days don't go over the mid-80s, rarely go over the mid-80s. And it's a really unspoiled and gorgeous place. It is just a place without any amenity whatsoever. No grocery store, no post office, no mailboxes, no garbage pickup, and absolutely
sounds
nothing.
Amazing.
Nothing whatsoever.
It sounds amazing.
You know, I as I wrote to you, I mentioned I stepped from that airport down below where we landed. That was the last bit. When we left that last checkpoint and went into the dark, it was an absolute another world all the way. It was astounding to me because I grew up there. I'd been to the countryside on the island that I grew up on called Luzon. Sure, it's kind of, like going back into the 1920s or 1930s, but this was a completely different place altogether, just completely different. And by the way, the people, they are called the Kala-Andig people. There are 7 tribes in this mountainous region. None of them like each other. They were warring until quite recently. They stopped about 3 years before I arrived in 2015. But they still fiercely guard their borders. You know, this valley over there is his, that valley over there is ours, and don't you dare cross that line. There is a tribal council headed by Datu Vic. Datu Vic is the overseer of all 7 tribes. One of the pictures I sent to you, I'm standing next to Datu Vic. Very wise man, speaks English. He has been to the United States and addressed Congress, as a matter of fact, in one form or another. I'm not sure how that took place, but he is quite the person. But he still lives, insists on living in his hut on stilts up a mud trail and follows all the old ways. If you can believe that. It's just incredible.
That sounds like
These
sounds
people,
amazing.
It was quite amazing. These people, I want to mention just to sort of frame things, are extremely animist in nature. In other words, they just don't trust Muslim, Catholic, Christian, missionaries. Absolutely are a no-no. And lowlanders. When I say lowlanders, I do mean that. Remember, they live up in the mountain. We're settled, again, 4,500 feet elevation, but right at the base of Mount Kitanlad, which goes up to 9,600 feet elevation. It's usually up in the clouds. It's everything's clad in jungle. I mean, monkeys, everything is very wild. These people adore their land, adore their way of life. I found most of them had never seen the ocean, and they live on an island. Now, there's something to think about, because the island is about, I live in Oregon right now. It's about a third of the size of the state of Oregon. It's a big, big island, but these folks just don't see any point in going down to the water. There's just no point. Being an animist, I observed their elders. They would teach constantly. I sat many a night around their fires. I eventually did learn their language. I can speak it fairly well. Hardly spoke English for the better part of 3 years. And I had to learn how they spoke, because I couldn't, in clearing this land for my sister and brother-in-law. We chose about 3 acres. I had to cut down these trees. I needed these workers. We had to make 2x4s. We had to make 4x4s. We had to get nails and all these other things. I had to learn how to say all of that stuff. I couldn't tell a guy, give me, 2 4x4x8s. Cut them this way. I had to say it in their language. Yes, boss. And, off they'd go and give me pretty close to what it was that we needed. So learning how they spoke was very important. But as important to me, so I could blend in and gain their trust, is to learn how they thought. I was very interested in that. What do they feel? I understand you don't like missionaries. Why? And so forth. Now, in the end, these folks came to trust me, and I became an honorary member of the Talaandig through a ceremony. I know the elders, went on hikes, hunts with them, spoke with them around fires. Just an absolutely incredible set of human beings. They have no concern for politics in our country. This is not true, especially right now.
Right. Yeah.
They have no concern for the government, no concern for soldiers, and any of these types of things. Firearms are illegal in that country. They come armed with sundang, which is a machete, which they make themselves, taught me how to make, and I made a beautiful one for myself in a very old-fashioned way. They hunt, and they constantly carry a spear, pike, and bow and arrow. I made my own through their teaching. I made 8 bows, actually, out of various jungle woods. And I turned around and constructed, after I'd learned what they had to teach me, I constructed a crossbow.
Oh, wow.
Which they had never seen before. And they were delighted. I would build it, sir, what are you making? No, just go away. I'll show you when I'm finished. Days and then once I got it done, and I'd make my own arrows as they did. They taught me chicken feathers for the arrow and the points, and burn it and bend it and so forth. And they saw that crossbow. They're very, very pleased. So I put together a tribal, everybody bring your bow, and I set up targets, and we had a great big contest. It was fun. But those types of things took place with these people. Once you gain their trust and you're in with them, they'll do anything for you. So having said that and giving a background of where they come from, everything was going fairly well. Again, until about several months into it, the day came where all the permits were done, the boundaries were set. We had permission to, this is for the land, the plot of land, because it had been sitting there since 1980, and I had to go down into the coastal city to apply for all the, yes, we own this land, here is the title, and so forth. So it was recognized, so we didn't get into trouble with the government down on the coast. Once I got back up to the mountains, there's a different kind of plan and set of hoops that you have to go through. That was with the elders, and that was with the tribal folks themselves. They do not like cutting trees. That's a no-no, especially certain types. No harming animals unless, they're approved and you are a tribal member. Can't just go. They have beautiful deer up there. You can't just go and shoot and skin gut and eat it. They'll kill you for that. And I'm serious when I say that. As I mentioned to you in my note, a foreigner came up there looking specifically for hardwoods, had his equipment and his team. They cut down a huge balete tree, which is a banyan. It's in English, a banyan tree, if you're familiar with that.
Yes.
And they took only the best wood, the heart, the thickest part, and hauled it away. Well, the permission was not asked by this foreigner, and so they put a death sentence on him, a very serious death sentence. I know this because they told me that, you can't cut trees here, sir. You have to see the elders and gain permission. Because, otherwise you'll have a death sentence. And look, people get killed in those areas. Not that often, but for very strange reasons. It's just not the safest of places. While I was there, there were many insurgencies. You'd hear gunshots from army incursions, usually landed by helicopter, into the sticks, up near Bagalangit, which is about 8 kilometers from me. Bagalangit means land before heaven. And it's a tribal area, beautiful area. And there was a shootout with communist insurgents there. About 50 yards off of my encampment, a tank pulled out from some trees and fired off 5 rounds as I was planing some wood.
Wow.
And that scared the hell out of all of us.
Yeah, that would get your attention.
Yeah, that was just too close for comfort. But anyway, so once that was made very clear to me, Ira, you have to go and see the elders. And that was told to me by one of my most trusted sidekick. His name's Ellie. He's a Talandig tribal young man who followed me everywhere, and he's the one who pretty much taught me how to say things. And then in exchange, I would teach him both Spanish. I'm able to speak Spanish as well, and English. So we would exchange lessons on a daily basis. And I knew I had it down when I was in a group of them around a campfire, and I made a joke in their language, and everybody laughed.
Oh, that's
everybody
amazing.
laughed. I said, "Oh my!" They understood me. I was psyched at that point. So up we went, and I spoke with the head Datu Vic. Datu, by the way, means Lord or Chief. Datu Vic, again, was the head of all 7 tribal councils. Each tribe had their own Datu, or chief. The Talandig people invited me to come and sit with the elders and pose my questions. So I went. I sat in the village. They're very excited to have a foreigner. I might have been the first one there. I'm not sure. Probably not. I don't know. But they have very fond memories of the Americans who were there in pre-World War II, and of course we're very sad because the Americans were captured by the Japanese there. As a matter of fact, the Japanese prison camp was about 10 kilometers away from my location, an old prison camp, and that's an off-limits according to the tribe. It's a sacred place. Don't go there. Many Americans were killed there, and Filipinos. So that's like a burial ground. The older people were very interested that I knew America, was from America. Many questions. Is it true this? Is it true that? And I said, yes, we do have large grocery stores. You can buy almost anything you want. And yes, we have highways with you can pass 4 cars at one time, side by side. Oh, it was just incredible to them. It's maybe it seemed like a little bit too much, but they just kept pouring on the questions. They wanted to know everything. Remember, these people don't have electricity. They don't have TV. They have a radio at best. That's it. As you move down toward the coast, now they have cell phones, of course, electricity and population centers, but that's not where I was at. Now, sitting with the elders, they said they understood, and it had a lot to do with the fact that I was born, as they put it, na ao mo dire sa Pilipinas. You became a person in the Philippines. That's how they would say. Like you and I would say, Tim, I was born in wherever, born in the East Coast or born in Wisconsin or something.
Right.
They don't say things like that. They say, where did you become a person? Natao. And they liked that very much, and understood that I was kind of one of them, but I came from the wrong part of the country that they don't like that much. But since I was there amongst them and had worked with them, I paid in cash. I paid very good rates above the whatever they could make in a month. I tripled it, and I paid on time. And I treated them well, bought them soft drinks, bought them, we had a good time. We laughed a lot. The elders heard about all of this. They granted my request to start clearing the land, provided that I follow the very strict instructions of their shaman. And I learned of these instructions, and as I wrote to you, they were made up of several points. Number one, I had to live trap 6 tikling. Tikling is a jungle chicken. They're extremely fast. They're like a skinny athletic chicken. Athletic. I mean, that thing can run. They run in groups of maybe a dozen at a time. And the ones that I had to trap must be color black. They have to be black. Most of them are black, brown, sort of, whatever, gray, mixed. These have to be pure black, 6 of them. And they had to be kept alive. So out went the snares. I learned how to set the snares because we had to capture them by the leg, not around the neck. And I had to capture 6. So now beyond that, I had to get raw tobacco, easy, buy it from them. I went up and worked with one of the men who farms tobacco, harvested it, chopped it with an ancient sort of paper cutter type contraption that he built to cut it into shreds, dried it and all of this. So I had the tobacco and gin, some coins, and hard candies that they eat up there. That's essentially this boiled sugar cane with various types of food coloring and other little flavorings from some nuts up there. These folks are very fond of beetle nut. You ever seen I thought it was just in South America. I didn't know it was in the Philippines, but the tribes who chew on this beetle nut that they mix with lime leaf and some alum powder, and they stick it in their mouth, and it sort of keeps them going and suppresses appetite. This is very common up there. I have pictures of the 3 of the chiefs making me a beetle nut chew. To be polite, I stuck it in my mouth, and I did what they did, just keep it in the back of your mouth like you do chewing tobacco. And that stuff will send you to the moon, I tell you. Sent me to the moon. I hated it. But it turns your teeth orange also.
Oh, wow.
Very nasty looking. Yeah, some of their teeth are really bad. So I'm up there, and I have now the permission. I have to get these various things. The tobacco easy, the candy easy, bottle of gin or alcohol, but they specifically said gin. And the trapping of the chickens took several weeks. Once we trapped it, we put it in a bamboo cage there at the house, at the camp, and finally we had 6. I sent word up that we had everything that we needed, and I don't know, it was a day or so later, down comes the shaman with my sidekick Ellie, and they wanted to take a look. Everything was approved, so yeah, we can start the ceremony. Said okay. So he wanted to look at the first trees we were going to cut, and that we should cut the largest trees first. Okay. So we selected the 6 trees. They were very big, about 3 3/4, 4-foot diameter at the base, about 100 foot tall. Acacia mangium. And these trees sat on, if you can, I'm going to try and describe, the jungle road, which is a dirt path about as wide as one pickup truck. That is the path that goes through the forest up into the village. And on one side of that path, it's level. On the other side, it's an incline of about 6 degrees, and it gets steeper and steeper, going all the way down about 40 to 45 meters, about 45 meters down to a river. It's the bottom of a canyon, a ravine. And then from that river on the other side, up goes the canyon, way up, a lot higher, and that's just thick jungle. All of that is. Well, that jungle road, those trees, they were on our property. That's where we wanted to cut them. That's where we decided to have, because of no tractors, no mechanized, have the water buffalo and the men who owned them. We would peg each felled tree with 5-inch spikes, wrap chain around it, wrap that to attach that to the water buffalo, and they'd haul it in 12-foot sections that we would cut with chainsaw up to, we needed a level landing area right near that jungle road so that we could, truck it out or move it whenever needed. And that's why I chose that location. So that location really, really needed to be cleaned up, and we did that. It was fairly level to start with. We did we cleared an area of about, I don't know, 30 yards by 20 yards. I think in meters for so long now. But that landing was created right next to the jungle path. But now picture, that landing was really the only level spot. Beyond it, it shot down to that river below, and it's completely thick with jungle. So we cleared it with some dung, with machete and so forth. We cut down some little trees that were on it, and what we wound up with was a clearing that had sheer walls of jungle on both sides. I mean, thick. And the clearing itself was fairly clean, and the water buffalo could drag up and get those logs up onto that clearing with a lot of effort, but we did it anyway. So the shaman showed up, and we had the chickens, and we went to the clearing because that's where the first trees were, and we performed the ceremony. The ceremony was to cut the neck of the chicken, and of the tickling bird, and he handed me one, and you squeeze it on the tree as he is doing incantations or chanting things that he did, and we squirted squeezed the blood all around the radius of the tree trunk that we're going to cut. He lit the tobacco, did his arrangement of the candies, the money, and he filled his mouth with gin and spewed it onto the tree trunk. And imagine, as he did this, he then looks up to the sky and not yells, but, says something that was appeasing to their spirits. Everything is spirits to these folks. So once that was done, we did that to all 6 trees. He said, we're ready to go. Now, that's where the main man, Lino, came into play. He is very unusually large. Filipinos are usually less than 6 foot. Lino is 6'8" always barefoot, and just a giant of a man, huge hands, chainsaws, and that region, that whole island, are illegal. You must have a permit to even buy a chainsaw, much less wield it. Well, Lino was a certified chainsawman, and he had a great big steel chainsaw with about a 3.5-foot bar on it. So that was good to take down whatever trees we needed to. He went to work, and we ended up that day finishing up with cutting the trees down, which is a dramatic thing if you've never seen that happen. I've got some on videotape, but it's quite something. What's even more quite something than that is once it's cut down, you've got to go buck the branches. Well, that tree fell into deep jungle. It's full of snakes, cobra, uttu uttu. Uttu uttu is a type of cobra. Uttu means lunch. Uttu uttu, the snake's name, the tribal name, is lunch lunch. Why? Because, sir, if you're bitten sa umaga, if you're bitten in the morning, you're dead at lunch.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Yeah. So to go down and buck all those branches was, you're bitten by everything you can imagine, and you just got to sit there and take it. And then cut the 12-foot lengths, get and have the water buffalo drag it up onto the landing. Well, that went really well. We got pretty much the whole thing in very good situation and called it a day. And everybody come back the next day. Now, who is everybody? At that point, I was left with Lino, the giant chainsaw guy, my buddy, and Ellie, my sidekick, about 22 years old at that time. And I had the two water buffalo men. Sir Francis was their leader. And then I had these sort of gopher guys. And all of them came back the next morning. We were ready to rock and roll. And it's about 7:30, 7:15, 7:30 in the morning, bright, beautiful, sunny day. Perfect. And so looked at the clearing, looked at the work we had done, and okay, boys, we remember, we started out with 6 trees. We ended up cutting down 178 giant trees. And that whole project took their part of 3 years. Now, that morning, uneventful, everything went well. About 11 o'clock, I walk the 1.5 kilometers or so back up to encampment just to sit down and take a break. My men are taking a break. I'm eating a bacon sandwich, drinking coffee. My dog Mike's right next to me. And right as soon as we're done, Mike's head pops up. I said, "What's the matter, boy?" I remember this, just clear as a bell. And he starts growling, low growl. And he's looking out across the field toward the jungle road there. And I didn't even stand up, but I heard distinct yelling. "Sir," in English, the word sir. "Sir, sir." And then I stood up and I tried to look. There I saw across the field a little figure running down the jungle road, and then getting ready to turn in, cross the field, and come to me, the whole while yelling, "Sir, sir." I'm trying to speak in English because I'm so tempted to. "There is Kapre, there is Kapre. Come quickly. They're all leaving. They're running." And I said, by this time he's about 20 yards from me, running up to me, and I just stop him and grab him. I said, "Ellie, what? Anong yari mo? What is the matter with you? Is there a wound? Is there blood? Is there bandits?" That's a thing that happens there. No. My Kapre. Kasi my Kapre, sorry. There is Kapre. I said, "Okay, look. he said they're all running and leaving. I grabbed the medical bag, which I always have around my person there. I just grab it, but it's just, it's just regular emergency bag supplies, nothing for any horrible big accident. And start running back. We start running back down the road.
Just to be clear, they're saying this, and I'm sure I'm going to pronounce it wrong. I'll try it. This Kapre, is that close?
Yes, Kapre.
You don't know what this word means at this point?
No.
So they're saying a word you don't understand.
I don't understand. I just didn't register with me at all,
Mm-hmm.
Look, I don't know their language 100% or what
Right.
they call all these different things. And these people believe in everything, Tim, from absolutely fairies, or they call it duende, which is little tiny people that live in the forest, in the trees, under your house, in your closet. They have so many different creatures that they believe. I don't want to call them mythological creatures because I respect these people and their beliefs very highly. So whatever, what is Kapre? I don't know. Maybe another one of those things. I just hadn't heard of it. So I just start running because clearly an emergency has happened.
Mm-hmm.
And my dog Mike's already down the road. Ellie is behind me. And as we hit the jungle road running down, here come both water buffalo drivers, Sir Francis and his boy or his friend or whatever, on their buffaloes. This, it's a water buffalo. We call it Calabao, Parabao.
Mm-hmm.
You know what that is? Big horns.
I've seen photos, yeah.
Usually, photos, they're like pulling rice paddy clouds or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And here they're coming toward us at a gallop, and Francis is just whipping the hind end of his. And as I told you, these things, like, you never see them gallop. They're just, lumbering big creatures,
mm-hmm.
not runners. And as they went by, I sort of went to the side of the road. I said, Francis, come up, pupunta, where are you going? Nothing. They just breezed right by. So I'm headed down. The clearing is just ahead. Ellie's behind me. He stops. He ain't going any further. My dog is already down there. And the other workers are either have left or are preparing to leave. And I said, what happened? What happened? We will not, hindi kami magbabalik. We will not come back here anymore. And left. They didn't care about, they still had pay coming, Tim, for the work they did.
Mm-hmm.
They never came back for it.
Wow.
They just weren't going to come back there anymore. And the only one that was left was Lino. He didn't run. He's just standing right there looking at me. And I said, Lino, God, Lino, what happened here? Because I could see there's no injury. There's no, anything. These people just took off. Lino just says, Kapre, boss. Kapre. And I just looked at him. I said, what? Kapre. It is really big. Very, very big. Dalawang ulo. That ulo means head. Dalawa means two. Two heads taller than himself, than Lino. And he puts his hand up above his head. And I'm looking at his hand. I remember looking at his hand. I said, what came? I'm thinking, what is this? Like, what is he talking about? He said it came from there. And I turned. Remember, Ellie is down the road. He is scared, whatless. He's not coming over to this landing. Lino's on the road. I jumped down because he's pointing to the wall of the landing that used to be just sheer jungle, because I cut that whole section myself, and it's got a big hole in it. And I'm looking at this hole like an elephant. It was taller than a water buffalo. Water buffalo coming through the jungle, if they're led, I guess they would. But this hole was 2 water buffaloes higher. It was just a big hole. And I looked at it, and he said, "Diyan magpumasok." There, it came inside. It entered. And I look at this hole. I said, "What?" And he continued to point at the big stump of the tree, the biggest down. And he said, he, not it, he walked to there. And apparently he was describing a very tall animal that is called a Kapre. I've researched it since. Is an animal that is Philippine folklore well before the Americans, well before the Spanish. This is ancient Philippine mythology throughout the tribes. It's called different names on different islands, apparently, but it is a tall creature that lives in the largest jungle trees. It is the guardian of the forest and watches over everything in the forest all the time. I didn't know that at this point. That's what I learned from the shaman and the elders. That I'm looking at Lino, and he's just describing this giant thing called a Kapre came right out through there. He told me he did not hear it. Hindi ko mapaminaw. We didn't hear it because we were running the water buffaloes pulling this giant log uphill. We turned, the caravana saw it first. He freaked out. Lino saw him freak out and turned and saw this thing. He was only about maybe 12, 15 feet. I'd say 12 feet from where it stood.
Oh, wow.
He said it turned and looked right at his face, Lino said. It turned and looked at me, boss. And then it looked at the tree, the stump, and the whole time it walked, stooped forward at the waist with its fists clenched, both fists, and walked in that stooped fashion toward that stump, bent over fully to look at it, took a couple steps around it and looked at it, and then stood up and looked toward the other stumps downhill and started walking down that way. Lino said it went all the way down and then kept going down toward the river. Now, the river, I'll describe, this is maybe about, at maximum, 20 feet wide. It's a running river with giant boulders in it and severe jungle on both sides. I've been down there 4 times. And the 4 times was just to go down and get wild orchids. They are beautiful. They hang off the trees down there. And to me, it was a worthy risk because I wanted those. It was harrowing each of the 4 times because to go down that way, even the locals don't like going down that way. I brought a couple of my boys with me. You slip on the slope. You can't grab for a tree branch just like you normally would, reflex, because that tree, most of the trees are with these little green vipers. They're only about 1 foot long, bright green. They're the color of the leaves. You can't see them, and they'll bite you just like that. And yes, they're poisonous. So it's quite you have to be very, very careful to go down there in the first place and have a good reason. I guess I was stupid going down 4 times, and but I came back with some beautiful orchids. But, you know, this thing, Lino said, walked down to sa ilog, to the river. And as it got out of sight, he said the last he saw, it turned to the right and went right back into the deep jungle. And I looked where he showed me it went, and by God, right there, the jungle was just trampled down, just like where it came in. But at that part where he went downhill, where it went downhill, there weren't any tall jungle trees. It was high jungle brush. So, you know, maybe 5-6 foot high, but you could see a path cut clear through it. Something big, like a water buffalo, went down toward the river there. And I wasn't about to go down and take a look. So that really was confusing, very, very confusing to me. And I was a little bit pissed off. What the hell? And they tell me they're not coming back. What is this? Well, that was, again, broad daylight. By then it was about close to noon. Broad daylight, all of this happened. I went into that tunnel, and this is something I didn't mention in my note to you. I walked into that entrance point, that big open, and I want to see what is in there. Where did this thing come from? What is this? A big man? And I knew about Sasquatch. I'm in the States. I am very familiar. Didn't think it existed in Mindanao, in the mountains, in the Philippines. There's just no way. It can't be. But it sounded exactly to me. That's what Lino was describing to me. A giant creature, all black, as he put it, so black, parang kalambong, which means like a walking shadow. And I just was confused. Anyway, I went into that entry tunnel that this thing created, and I walked in about 10 meters, maybe 12 meters. That's, call a meter a yard. I mean, 30 feet, maybe 40 feet in. As high as I can reach, stuff was pushed over, Tim, cracked, snapped, and then at the deepest part, down into the 10, 12 meter part, about 30, 40 feet, right as I got in, it just stopped. Perfect jungle. Everything was perfect. At the very base, at that very end, there's a caliandra tree, which is a good thick trunk tree, but only about a foot and a half diameter on average. Beautiful, long, bright red flowers in season. It was leaning over. It was cracked at the base. At the base of the tree, it was like a truck smashed into it and knocked the tree over. And the rest of the jungle right around it was untouched. I went back and visited that spot several times in subsequent days. Ellie would not come with me. Nobody would come with me. The news spread quickly to the village, to all the elders, all the villages around, that Kapre had been seen. The problem was that nobody was going to come down. Project was done. No one would work for me. I shortwaved my brother-in-law, my sister up in Manila. Briefly what happened, and everything's at now a standstill. Then we've got the subsequent visit from the shaman. It was only within just a very, very short time. He came down to visit. He wanted to go take a look at where this happened. He brought along with him another man, tribal man, and they both walked down the landing with me. And Ellie hung back, and they said, you have to come here and tell us what you saw and what happened. Well, Ellie did that. He came down with me, and I think I mentioned he's got his arm wrapped around my arm. He told the shaman and this other gentleman. The other gentleman was a man named Sir Wawai. I called them Sir out of respect before their name. You can also call them Bai, B-A-I. That means friend. But that's too familiar. So when you're amongst elders, you say Sir instead. And Sir Wawai and the shaman listened intently. And the shaman asked me to go back up onto the road with Ellie. Sir Wawai, it turns out, is their keeper of all things. The word would be enchantment, music, storytelling of the olden ways, things like that.
Kind of their folklore.
Yeah, the head of Talandig tribe, yeah. Fantastic man, and a good friend now too. Sir Wawai sat on the stump of the very first stump where the Kapre leaned over, and he began to sing and chant. Lasted a good while, cross-legged on the stump, pointing to the sky, to the ground around him. And that was it. It was beautiful to watch. For me, it was extremely entertaining to watch this. And the shaman said that maybe we cannot proceed. He has to, decide and have a conference and talk with Mr. Wawai, Sir Wawai, etc., and the other elders. But it looks like perhaps we cannot proceed. We have to find out why this happened, because it was such an unusual event. Nothing like this had occurred up there, except in legend of their grandparents' days, ancestor days. No Kapre has shown themselves. Of course, no one up there has come up and started lopping off trees either, I suppose.
Right.
I don't know. So that's it. Everything stopped for weeks, at least a couple of weeks, as I recall. It was Mr. Wawai, and he came down into camp and said that the shaman and the elders wanted to see me. They have made a decision. So I went up with Ellie and Sir Wawai. They had a little bit of a sing-song sort of a festival going on. I bought a pig. That's the second one I bought. As the guest of honor, I had to kill it with a pike. After all of it takes hours to roast a pig. You can't just... So there's lots of conversation, exchange of question and answer, etc., while this thing is, the feast is being prepared. It's wonderful. But in the end, hours later, the announcement was made by the shaman that we had done everything correctly in their view, his view and the others' view, that the spirit of the forest, the boss man, the Kapre, showed itself to make sure that we had done, this is in their opinion, make sure that we had done everything correctly. And we had. So we must do everything again, capture the 6 black birds, tobacco, the whole thing, and we must do everything again one more time. Well, we did. Took me took us a while to trap the tickling birds, and the word was sent up that we have everything, and off we went. Down we came and replayed the whole deal, but this time with Sir Wawai, with an extremely strange, like a long, I call it the closest thing is a sitar.
Okay.
This is an Indian sort of string instrument, but this is the Talaandig's version of a sitar. This had 3 strings on it, but he played it with his fingers and he played it with a bow. Incredible sound, incredible. We did the ceremony's all done. It was just a fantastic thing that, we were able to carry on, because I really did think the whole project would be stopped according to, everything that we'd done. We did it all correctly. We sacrificed the chickens, did the tobacco, the gin, and was told by shaman and Sir Wawai with the elders that we would be able to continue. Now, continue we did, but nobody would stay there to watch the cut logs, to guard over the property, to guard my camp. Once it turned dark, everybody disappeared. I mean, it's like clockwork, 6 o'clock p.m., sun goes down, no daylight savings time, no real season change. They just disappeared. So I lived for months in the dark with just me and my dog Mike. And I'll tell you what, after that whole event, it gets pretty spooky. You're jumping at every noise there. Wow. But after 3 years, the project was done, built some, cleared the land, beautiful 3 buildings that we built. Unfortunately, the civil unrest situation has just gotten worse. So it's doubtful. I want it to go back right now, November. But I don't know when I'll be able to go back to see them. I did buy Ellie a modern, like an iPhone, a Samsung telephone, Galaxy, and taught him how to use it to send back and forth messenger messages and pictures. And he has been doing so. I bought him a 1-year, they call it load. You buy, use for 1 year. And that year just about up. It'll be up at the beginning of December. But yeah, I just talked to him within the last 24 hours. They're still there. It's very odd to be here and the luxury we have in the United States, and those folks I know, and I can picture what they're doing way, way up in those mountains with all the mist and, plowing their fields and no electricity, no nothing. But you know what? They're the happiest people I've ever run into. They're wonderful.
Wow. So, how many years did you end up staying?
I think I covered with them?
Yeah.
Them I stayed a little over 3 years, solid. And I just left to go to Hong Kong to get out of the country and come back in and renew my visa about 3 times. But I just go strictly, it's just an hour and a half plane jet flight from Mindanao to Manila, and then another hour and 5 minutes from Manila to Hong Kong. So I would do the whole thing in one day. I just get up in the morning and fly to Hong Kong and be back by 8, 9 at night up in the jungle. Other than that, I didn't leave there. I just stayed there the whole time. I loved it. I was very sad to leave. But, there's a kidnapping of foreigners for money, and the hills are very well populated with New People's Army, NPA, communist guerrillas. They tend to target places. When I finally did get electricity, which was about early 2000s, maybe March 2017. So that was, 2015 to then, no electricity. Well, we had lights. If you're a communist guerrilla living up in the mountains, all of a sudden you see this place with these lights on.
Oh, yeah.
down there, why, that's kind of your target. So it went. But I wouldn't have traded it for anything. I'll be back one day for sure.
Oh, it sounds like such an adventure.
Those are good folks.
It sounds like such an amazing adventure. I mean, wow.
It was an adventure. It was, Tim. I tell you what. But I don't think if you volunteered to come with me or any other sort of American or foreign folks, they would want out of there like the first day. I know they would.
I
know they would.
Yeah.
Get me the heck out of here. Where are we? Yeah.
The idea that the Kapre live in trees, this is not terribly unusual when it comes to Bigfoot. Many people have asserted this, both in native cultures and actually some people in the modern Bigfoot community have asserted that they, if not live there, they have something, very close to do with trees. So
I've got to confess, I did not know that. I had no notion that they stayed in, I don't know where they live, but
right. Well,
I didn't think in trees.
Well, it's considered kind of more from the, I guess, the woo side of things, people, the more supernatural side of things, but it is a notion that is out there. I ran into it several times in writing the book I'm currently writing. And so it's, again, both in the U.S. and in tribal cultures and in, modern, non-tribal Bigfoot culture, several people have asserted that. There's even, I think one of the Survivor Man Bigfoot episodes, they talk about it. And they said he puts his ear to a tree and he could hear knocking in the tree. And I think they said, I don't want to talk out of bounds, but I believe there was a First Nations person that was saying something about them living in trees there. I may be incorrect about that. But in any case, I've heard... I'm sorry?
Great respect for First Nations, whatever they say. I listen intently. Absolutely do.
Yeah. So it's not an unheard of concept. Now, when you say you followed that hole back into the jungle...
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And then there was just you said there was like the one big tree that was it pushed over
or? No chop marks. That's all I can tell you. I say it looked like it was either a buffalo ran into it, a truck, but the truck would have left marks. Mm-hmm. There were no scuff marks, nothing. The tree was snapped about 1.5 feet above its base. And it was about, like I said, about 4 inches diameter or so, about a foot in diameter, I mean to say. And it was snapped and laying on its side, fully alive. Mm-hmm. Branches, everything, leaves, it was all there. So it was fresh. It had just been done. And it was a good, from that point to the road, maybe 10 meters, maybe 30 feet from the road itself and down slope. So there was nothing in there that would have lightning strike. Why did I? No. That was fresh and snapped.
Wow.
That's what I called it. So that's why I went back to revisit. But why was nothing else? The trail just ended.
Right, and that's what I was
ended.
Getting to. Did it seem like? I mean, again, this is kind of, more supernatural side of things. But did it seem like it just materialized there in some way?
That's all I can figure. There was no gigantic tree where it dropped down from. There was none. There was a lot of gigantic trees there. That was that whole area from that wall that we cleared on the landing. And onward to the north, toward Kitanlad, we didn't cut any trees. From that landing wall, all inward toward up the upslope to the mountain, we didn't cut anything. So there were giant trees all over there, huge ones, like what we had cut. However, there were none on that trail. Like they say, they live in trees. Well, I look around. Did he drop from some giant tree and create a path to where I'm standing? Nope, no giant tree there.
Wow.
It just ended. So I don't know where I don't know where it came from. There was nothing disturbed. I love to do tracking. I learned a lot of tracking from these folks. Believe me, they are absolute experts. And my teacher was a man named Sir Roddy. Sir Roddy's 82 years old. He showed up one day and volunteered to climb up and hammer together my roof rafters to my own little house that I was building. And that roof was 32 feet high. And he climbed up there like a monkey, hung on like a monkey, barefoot, grabbing nails, hammering them in, hang on with one arm. Fantastic athletic ability for an 82-year-old.
82.
He, 82 years old, and all of maybe, not even 5 feet, maybe 4'8".
Oh, wow.
He took off his shirt every day to work, and you talk about just straight sinew and muscle, every square inch of that man. And the first day he arrived for work, he came with a rice sack, and there was blood-stained rice sack. And he came up to me, and I was squatting. He asked me, can he build a fire? And I said, sure, go ahead. And he built a fire about 11, just before lunchtime. He built a fire, and I was nearby, sitting on a rock. I wanted to see what was in that dang bag. And he pulled the bag, upended it, and out fell the body of a good-sized monkey. It's a macaque monkey they have up there, with only half the body cut vertical, no head, and then from the middle of the neck down to the groin, cut in half. So you had one arm, one leg, one set of ribs, just that side. And hair and everything was still on it. And he threw that on the fire and burned the hair off and then just laid it on there. That was his lunch. And he asked me if I wanted some. I said, no, sorry. I'm already full. I'm already full. But yeah, that was something else. But he was a tracker guy, and he taught me a lot of that stuff. I wanted to bring him in there. Everybody had heard about all of this. Everybody in all the surrounding hills. Nobody wanted. I was a crazy person. Just to get them to go on the landing itself.
Wow. Was
a big deal, because we kept the landing. We kept that and stacked all the logs up there at the season. And they're very nervous. Like I said, at dark, off they went. Before dark.
Mm-hmm. Other than the description of the sort of walking shadow they gave to you, did they describe it anymore?
Lino, I asked him, may buhok, is there hair? Yes, boss, but very black, all itum, like kalambong, like a shadow. Extremely, no noise, no, I didn't sense any aroma or leftover. Sometimes that's associated with the alcohol, but none. I didn't detect any scent, and according to Lino, it had no resemblance, because I asked him, parang unggoy, is it like a monkey? And he said, no, tao. That means man.
Oh, okay.
Not any resemblance to, a monkey. I don't know if they know what apes are, but they certainly know monkeys, but nothing related to a monkey. It was a hairy man. Man, tao. That's the term for man, person. Mm-hmm. So, and that's, I did not ask him what the teeth, was it sharp teeth? I didn't ask him any of that. Right. I wish I did now. According to him, it was dead silent, quiet, no snort, nothing. It just walked, crunching on the ground through the bush, stopped at that tree, bent with its fists, both fists clenched, and bent over slightly at the waist. That's how it walked. Bent over slightly at the waist with the fist clenched. Really odd. I don't know.
Yeah. So, was the ground such that you could have even seen footprints, or was there just no way to even look for them?
No, there's no way. Like I said, drought season, and it had we had a lot of, especially on the landing, a bunch of crammed down what was left over from our cuttings. Mm-hmm. But there was just no prints. It was dry. It was very hard. That's purposefully why we chose then, because we knew if it was going to be rainy or muddy, it'd be hell to drag those logs up and all that. So we had to get it done during that time of year. Mm. So, yeah, there's nothing as far as prints. I looked, believe me, and now that I'm back in the States, as I mentioned, I'm kind of obsessed. What in the hell was this? They are absolutely, they've got to be there. And so now I've been back close to a year now, and I've just, all last spring and summer and this fall, I've just been going to most remote spots up in the mountains here in Oregon, looking up across where are Bigfoot sightings, where is this location, and I head up there just with me and my dog Mike, and park the truck, set camp, and stay out a couple, 2-3 nights. Not that I want to run into one. I'm looking only for sign, prints, the various, as you see on some of these shows with the branches leaning together, make a teepee shape or whatever I can find. And I'm not going to stop doing that. I cannot wait until it warms up. As a matter of fact, I'll probably go out on first snow is coming, I think, next week out here. So I'm going to head up to the foothills of the Cascades because snow prints, they're good enough for me. I'm going to go and take a look out Table Rock Wilderness. A lot of sightings out there. And that's only about 40 minutes from my house, enter the wilderness there, and it's pretty vast. So, I'm afraid I'm stuck. I've got to, and I'm retired, so I have time. I've got to go out and see what's up with all of this. I just can't get out of my head. It's immensely interesting to me. Yeah. It just is.
I'm right there with you. You catch the bug, and it's hard to get rid of it.
As far as I did not know that you had authored books on the subject. I did not know that, so I'm going to have to go and I just ran across this. What did I listen to last night? Was it The Witch Diggers or?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I just listened to so many. But the person who you were talking to, they'd mentioned your book on Bigfoot in, is it Pennsylvania or the East Coast somewhere?
I have Bigfoot in Pennsylvania was my first one. That's all historical articles.
There you are.
That was my first Bigfoot book. I did another book on kind of local folklore. And then I did West Coast Wild Men, which is the same thing for California, Oregon, and Washington State. It's all like newspaper collections.
Really?
Yeah. I'll do the whole country eventually, but the book I'm working on now is, it has to do with all the kind of weird stuff that's associated with Bigfoot that makes it really, really hard to explain. Things like disappearing trackways, almost kind of like you're sort of disappearing, I wouldn't a trackway, but, whatever it went back that far, it just ended. So things like that,
yes, sir,
are the kind of things we're covering in this book.
Well, I don't know. I don't even know what to. What are your feelings on that? Because it's totally perplexing what happens to you. What on earth do you think? Never mind. I don't know. I have no idea.
I allow myself
no idea how.
I allow myself to change opinions regularly. I think that's healthy. Where I am right now with it is that I don't think it's a natural creature. Now, if it is, it has abilities that no other natural creature on the planet does, which would, that makes it very, very unique. But I'm at the point now where I'm kind of in agreement with, a lot of the First Nations people, and there's a long history of wild men in European culture too. And
yes,
by far most of them say it's not a natural thing. It's a some sort of supernatural creature. And that's kind of where I'm leaning now. Although, there are certain things that make it sound a lot like a natural creature. I have to admit that. There are a lot of things that, in a lot of ways it acts like it has known sort of primate behavior. So that, I have to admit that. So, I don't know. My answer is, it's truthfully, I don't know, but I love the mystery, and I'm gonna keep at it. I don't think I'll solve it, but I'll have fun. I'll have fun looking into it.
Oh gosh, well, I envy you. I'll be out there doing the same thing, hunting away. But I will tell you, to the Talandig people, this is something to be celebrated, because it really was something to be celebrated, because I wasn't a bad guy. We did everything right. We went through the elders. We went through the shaman's rules. We did everything correctly, and the Kapre came, and according to the shaman, we did everything well, with respect. They think it's wonderful. It's wonderful. In other words, we are all in the good grace. We didn't violate, the overseer of the forest. We did the right thing. Sir Ira did the right thing also. And because of that, I got to admit, I really received a lot of respect and kinship from them after that whole event, because I went along with their ways. But look, to them, it's just like any other day. The things in the forest are many and mysterious, and they accept and respect each and every one of them. I mentioned the little people, the fairy things. Mm-hmm. It's quite a mindset, and I love it. I really love the folks, and I love the way they think. And
well, they're living in concert with the land, and they've been there for however many millennia. They've been there.
Yes.
You have to listen to their stories. You can try to explain them away if you want, but you listen to what they're saying. I really feel that way. Like there's got to be some real wisdom there. There's a reason why these stories are passed down.
I agree wholeheartedly. It's just a wealth of knowledge that I guess modern society chooses to ignore, because they instead look at these folks as being backward, and they're not backward. Hell, they're happier and less stressed out than you and I, living amongst all our comforts here. They really are.
I'm absolutely sure of it. Absolutely sure of it.
Yeah. Well, Ira, I'll be happy to send some pictures to you. Yeah.
Awesome. You're as good a storyteller as your story is good. You're a fantastic storyteller. Thank you so much.
Oh, good gosh. Thanks very much to you. It was a pleasure. Thanks for the interest. I really do appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for listening, everybody. I will have some photos up at strangefamiliars.com under this episode that Ira sent me, so you can see some of the things and some of the people he was talking about in the episode. I want to thank Ira once again. Wonderful, wonderful story. So happy to be able to feature it on Strange Familiars. If you are local, if you are in South Central Pennsylvania, and you want something to do on Black Friday that isn't shopping, Chad is hosting a hike for Strange Familiars listeners. This is not an official Strange Familiars event, but if you'd like to accompany Chad on a hike in Michaud, you can do so this coming Friday. For more information, check out the Strange Familiars Gathering group. Chad has the information up there. If you're a patron, you can find it on our Discord server. Do not miss next week's show. Next week's show features a Franciscan monk named Brother Richard, who talks about the other in some very, very wonderful ways, and the contemplative Christian tradition, and how the other is talked about and dealt with in his tradition. It is an amazing interview, so make sure you guys come back next week and check out my talk with Brother Richard. We will be back soon with another episode of Strange Familiars. Thanks again, patrons. And remember, you can always find us at strangefamiliars.com. Strange Familiars is a production of Dark Holler Arts, music, books, art, podcasts, and more. darkhollerarts.com. Intro and background music is by Stone Breath. Go to stonebreath.bandcamp.com for more. We are on Facebook, facebook.com/strangefamiliars, where you can join the Strange Familiars gathering group. And we are on Instagram @strangefamiliars.
Hi, Timothy. This is Sean calling. I read a little story on the Discord server about a woman who had seen her father in a ghost car, basically. So I wanted to relay this happening to you and your listeners. In 2001, I was driving back from Virginia to Pennsylvania with my father's ashes. I saw a car drive by out of the corner of my eye, and a split second later, I thought, am I seeing things? Was that a Buick LeSabre? Not only a LeSabre, but the same model and color that my father bought in 1976 as the family car. The old American gas-guzzling boat style of car. There may be a model left from that era in someone's hands, but I haven't seen one in decades. It looked like one of the rear side panels had been replaced with a different color, but the rest of the car was the same green as our car. The driver was male. I was so shocked that I sped up to 80 or 90 miles an hour to verify if that's what I saw. The road ran through a wooded area with only the occasional long residential dirt drive coming off of it. I kept up the chase for several miles until we hit a stoplight, at which point I gave up. It may have driven down one of those drives, or it may have just gotten too far ahead of me to catch up. My mother was with me in the car, and I asked her if she had seen a LeSabre, and she said no. My brother was driving the same route in another car, and I later asked him, and he said no. Perhaps the car was not a LeSabre, and my mind converted it into one, as I only saw it for the briefest instant and out of the corner of my eye at that. It even took a second or two for the impression to register. But of all the cars we passed, none of them resembled what I saw. Also, I wanted to relate this little thing that happened in the same trip. A day or two earlier, my brother and I were in a car in Virginia, and a Styx song came on the radio. It was a song where there was some clapping in the middle of it. My family lived in Hong Kong in the 80s and had this album on the car cassette player, not the LeSabre, by the way. The roads in Hong Kong are mountainous and twisting, so my father would take his hands off the wheel and clap along with the tape to scare us. Long odds to hear a Styx song on the radio in 2001, let alone this song, but we did. We also heard a country song with lyrics describing a father looking down on his son from heaven. So those are the little stories I wanted to relate. Best wishes for your podcast and other ventures. Bye now.
Upon the tree, it waits for me, it waits for me. The lazy ox, the feathers fall, and owls will watch, crows will call. And who is hanged upon the tree? He waits for me, he waits for me. Down the hill upon the tree. It waits for me. It waits for me. The tree will speak in cracks and creaks, in hollow knocks and whispering leaves. And who is hanging upon that tree? He waits for me. He waits for me. From the shadows, witches gaze with eyes of fire, all ablaze. The skull is hung upon the tree. It waits for me. It waits for me. And who is hanging upon the tree? He waits for me.